I'm Evil Black Weapons, and today I'm going to show you how to make a SAIGA 12 Rock and Lock mag to VEPR 12 adapter. Pretty much the VEPR 12 takes VEPR magwell mags, and right now they're not very plentiful, and the factory ones are quite expensive. The higher capacity ones are anyway. Surefire Gun Magazine's just coming out with some, and I eagerly anticipate those. I personally am not interested in, using SAIGA 12 mags in my VEPR 12 because it kind of defeats the purpose of why I bought it to begin with. I like the mag well. I like the last round bolt hold open. With this adapter, the last round bolt hold open will not function. As a matter of fact, you have to remove it. But anyway, pretty much you got to strip the hand guard and everything off your weapon. You got to get it to the point to where you can remove this mag well. And someone was talking about knocking this pin out, and it being a pain in the ass to get the spring back in there. What I did was I used a SAIGA 12 mag catch pin, and I started the original pin out and then knocked the SAIGA 12 mag catch pin in there, and it doesn't quite fit perfect, but it will retain the spring and the catch enough to where you don't have to fiddle with getting it back together, because it is kind of tough even for me, and I've got a bunch of picks and stuff that I use to do it, and it's still tough. So to avoid having to put that spring back in and everything, just find a piece of something, a cut-off punch or whatever you can use to use as a slave pin here. Okay, so assuming you understand that, we're going to move on to this. Now, there's a screw in here, or a nut in here, that you have to make a tool for. And the tool I made, just find a ratty old, decent quality screwdriver and make a tool to get it out. Basically, this indention is what clears the actual bolt that's going through there. So anyway, you take your mag well off, by knocking the pin out and taking this out, and once you get this nut out of there, you just slide the bolt straight out of here. Okay. So as far as the last round bolt hold open, I probably could have came up with something to make the magazine clear the bolt hold open. That's the reason why I had to take mine out, was because it was interfering with the mag, and the mag was interfering with it, and it just had to come out. But what I did on mine was I made a tool for this. I don't have it with me, sorry guys, but I made a tool for this, button on the bottom, unscrewed that, pulled the plunger up enough to get this out, and tightened it back down, because if you leave everything but the actual lever in, you can use this button as a bolt hold open. The only thing though is you got to be careful not to spin it, because if you spin it or push it in too far, it could lock up. It could get twisted and end up locking your gun up for the moment. It's not a big deal. You just got to pull the bolt back and get it back right. But anyway, of course, you're going to have to pull, part of your fire control group out to get this out. But if you're going this far into this, you should know how to do that anyway. So I won't waste any time on that. So onward. What did I use to get this out of here? I used this, which is 1032 threads, and I think it's a piece of an old trigger guard or something, do-it-yourself trigger guard. I'm not sure what it is, but anyway, it's what I saw laying there, so I used it. And I used it because I had this 1032 socket cap screw. Now, of course, it was a little bit longer and all that. I had to fit it, but basically, I used this nut, this screw, and this was a piece of 1 1/4 by 1 1/4, 1/8 thick angle iron. And I mean, it's galvanized angle. But anyway, I thought that would be a pretty efficient and easy way to extend this surface under here. So that's what you're trying to simulate with this adapter. You're trying to extend this surface and, you know, in essence, create somewhere to catch the mag. If you can see that, I have no clue, but anyway, you're trying to, you know, catch the mag here. It's not really a big deal what we're doing here. It's not rocket science, but it can be done on the cheap. You know, and for those of you who love your MD20 drums like me, you might want to go this route and just leave it like that. But man, I really love that mag well. I love that last round bolt hold open, and I gotta have those SGM mags. It's just how it is. But pretty much what you're gonna do is you're gonna cut that piece of angle. Say this piece of angle was like this. That's how it was when it started life. I meant to bring another piece of this so you could see. But anyway, you're using the side that comes up here as your simulated recessed receiver surface that the mag catches on. But anyway, it needs to be about 1 3/16 wide. It's about how wide the receiver is, you know. But and it needs to be roughly 15/16 of an inch this way. Okay. So anyway, what you're going to do is you cut the angle 1 3/16 long, and then this surface here, you're going to leave it about 1/16 of an inch thick when you cut this side of the angle off. What I did was I cut mine large and then I filed it just right. How you want to do it, that's up to you, but that's how I did it, and this thing worked first try. There was no tuning or anything like that. Another thing you want to pay attention to is observe whether or not your angle, the sides of it, have any bow, you know, because that's obviously going to affect how thick this needs to be. The flatter it is, the better. This sits on there just right, you know. I kind of got lucky. I just had this shit banging around on the workbench and decided to use it. But you're gonna make this whole side about 1/16 of an inch thick, and pretty much how it's gonna work is you're gonna simulate the curvature of this. Now, I filed mine a little bit, checked it, and filed it, and checked it, and filed it, and checked it. And because the way this fastens, you don't really have a lot of room for error, because part of what holds this in here is the way this is tuned, or filed and fitted. But anyway, also on this you have to grind a little bit off of here, or file, or whatever, to allow the mag to rock in, you know. And it's also good. I kind of got a little carried away on this. I did this in a matter of about 45 minutes from, you know, inception to having it ready to put on a weapon. But leave a little bit of flat right here, about 1/16 or a little less. You know, try not to get this angle down into that too much, or it'll be sharp, and, you know, it could kind of damage your mags. I'm not really anal about my stuff, but some people are. So anyway, after you get it fitted just right, okay, now this is where it takes a little bit of accuracy, a little bit of measuring. You get it fitted just right, and you get this edge where it's fitted just right, and you're going to take this off. Depending on what kind of screw you got, I could have used an 8/32 screw, I mean an 832 screw, but I used a 1032. I had to file this just a little bit to allow the screw to pass, because it is a little large, but I'm going to hack this thing up anyway. It's probably going to be SBS sooner or later. But anyway, you're going to have to fit that so your screw will go through. And once you make that happen, okay, and assuming that this edge, when it's sitting on here, is flush with that, you can measure over, you know, and find out what this is. It should be somewhere in the neighborhood, or what the distance to the center of this screw is. It should be somewhere in the neighborhood of about 5/16. Then what you're going to do is, placing this on here, mark where the center of this notch comes on this, and scribe a line across it. Measure over your 5/16 or whatever it happens to be, the way you've done it, and you drill a hole just barely big enough to allow a 1032 to pass. That's pretty tight. Anyway, that's going to be key, because as little as this thing has holding it, it only has a screw and a nut and these little areas you fitted here to hold it in here and hold it in here right. You want everything to be tight. You know, I mean, it's a firearm, and drums that are loaded are pretty heavy, and I'm sure if you didn't do this well, it probably wouldn't be very reliable. Mine's been as reliable as the gun is. But anyway, what you're going to do is, you know, you're going to need some means of sliding this in here and holding it a little bit. And then you can put your screw through after you see through the hole that it's kind of halfway lined up. It's not too hard if you got the, you know, I wouldn't want to be sitting on the floor on some carpet doing this. But, you know how it is. It's tough out there. But the reason why I chose that nut that I chose is because it will clear the handguard a little better and requires a little less modification on the handguard. The way I did this handguard had to be clearanced for the for that nut. Depending on what you use, you may have to remove a little more or a little less on it, but you take it off of this side right here, you know, just file it or whatever, and keep checking it and fitting it to see if it's going to work. But this isn't in here, you know, tits or anything like that, but you know, you can rock and lock a mag in there. This is what everybody's been wanting to do here, so I mean, there you go. It you know, fits pretty good and works well. And the way I did it, it keeps the angle of the drum just right, just like it would sit in a SAIGA 12. Now, of course, I skipped a step, but anyway, after you get your mag well off and drive your slave pin in here, you need to drive the original factory pin back through, because the SAIGA 12 one isn't quite long enough to do what it should do. But anyway, the adapter is very simple. You know, I understand there's some companies that are going to offer an aftermarket adapter, and you know, I think it's a great idea. I have to admit it's not my idea, but you know, I like a challenge, and I just wanted to see how easy it would be to do. And from the moment I decided to put this VEPR back together, because I had it completely torn down, had everything with the barrel out, from the time I thought about doing it to the time I was at the range testing, it was about 2 hours. So I mean, this is a pretty quick project. Once you start getting into it, if you got decent hand skills and a good eye, you can make it work really well. Anyway, there's going to be an aftermarket version out, and it's polystyrene that's coming out with it, and you know, I'm sure it'll be a good adapter. And if there's anything about this he'd like to use on there, I've already let him know he can have it. But anyway, times are tough and the economy's bad, and you know, some of you guys might want to run SAIGA 12 drums in your VEPR 12, and you might not have, you know, money to spend on shit like that, but you might have this stuff just laying around. So this is for you. But anyway, if you aren't registered on VEPR.org, go register. I'm a mod there. Pretty friendly group of people. I mod the VEPR forum and the technical / modification forum. And if you need any help, feel free to ask. I may be posting some more detailed pics, some maybe, you know, that show exactly what all the measurements are on this, so you'll have a little better idea of what you're doing there. But anyway, Evil Black Weapons out.